Hello and welcome to Tech Talks by AdTech, where we discuss marketing, technology, and business priorities for 2021. Today we have with us Murugan Narayanaswamy, who is the Executive Director and CEO for Manna Foods. Welcome, Murugan. Great to have you at AdTech Tech Talks today.
Uh, Absolute pleasure, very great to always have been associated in some way with AdTech. And just one, we have a company is called Southern Health Foods Private Limited, based in Chennai. The brand, of course, is the popular Manna brand.
Manna Foods, the Manna Foods we all are very fond of. So let me start with the first question, Murugan. So 2020, I mean, the very obvious question, 2020 has been a year where we've seen that the health focus has become very important among the masses. At least all of us are trying to eat healthy. And Manna Foods just sits within that specific niche of healthy eating, the millet-based foods. How has it been in general? How has the year worked for you as a business?
Firstly, at an overall level, I think this has been an inflection point in more ways than one. Apart from all the regular inflection that COVID has brought together, what it's also done is it's raised the overall consciousness and awareness of consumers to personal hygiene, food safety, and all of that, which is a very big breakthrough because as a country, it's a beautiful thing that people are a little more careful with respect to what food they eat, what products they use, how hygienic and safe are they, and how nutritious are the products they eat. So I probably think and hope sincerely this will be a great inflection point, because many consumers I know look at the back of don't look at the back of the panel to see what is the ingredients that the product has. Second, even if they see, they're not that charged up to understand that fully. With all that has happened with COVID, the understanding and the need to see what you guys are giving has gone up in the consumer's mindset, which is a very welcome positive in a country like India. We will be far more hygienic, food hygiene and normal hygiene quotient will definitely go up thanks to this. Having said that, the pandemic from a business point of view has been extremely challenging for most leaders and across organizations, I presume, because you're like caught unawares. We've always been taught in management, you have to look at uncertainty, you have to look at things not going your way. But something like this, very difficult for somebody to have predicted and planned for it. So, but the good thing in all that is some super things have happened for food. Manna and Southern Health Foods, like I told you, work on the fact that we think that whatever consumers eat and drink can be made more nutritious through millets and multigrain. Pretty much we believe in that. So for us, this aspect of COVID, which is people becoming more conscious with healthy foods, immunity foods, and all are very good, because millets by nature have a lot of health connotations. And definitely even the most searched terms in the few months of COVID was, and on Google search trends and all of this was also immunity. Non-food products started claiming some kind of immunity. So you can understand how big it has become. Health and immunity has helped us also. Our brands like Health Mix, which is a 100% natural nutrition product to kids in their growing phase. Millets by nature, which are super grains actually. People know so much about quinoa. I wish more consumers got to know about these millets, which are actually super grains, which always existed in India even before independence. Consumption was very high. We see a slow coming back of millets into the mainstream food soon. Our millets have done very well. Our multigrain drinks, which we had launched, has also done well, which is also has an immunity claim. So generally, the year has proved very beneficial for companies which anyway thought health and immunity, or for those companies which were quick on their feet to say, I'll respond to COVID by launching something, on immunity. We have 40-year-old brands which never said immunity till the COVID happened, and suddenly they had to claim immunity. So fair enough. That's how I see the thing. And good thing is, I see this trend continuing here for at least a few more years. It's not like now we've got the vaccination and I feel we made a little bit of an advancement in overall health and immunity in the country. And I hope and wish that this continues.
Absolutely. I think we've been speaking about it. All the top nutritionists have been speaking about it, but it's good that it's actually hit home in 2020.
Absolutely.
I think makes sense. So what have been some of your major priorities in like you said, it's caught you unawares, it's caught all of us unawares. But what have been, your major priorities, your comeback strategies, I can call it that?
See, the first priority of the company, even pre-COVID and more so in COVID, has always been like what I told you, right? Our purpose is, can I help you in some way to improve what you eat? Basically, whether call it malnourishment, call it undernourishment. India is a diabetic capital in the world, and India has so much of cholesterol and obesity issues. Therefore, our purpose has always been, how can I improve what people eat and drink? So the priority will, even pre-COVID and even post-COVID. Within that, if I have to break it into, okay, what are the, how do you break the priorities down into? First is obviously, given all this, to further grow the health, nutrition, and portfolio of the organization, which basically has meant growing health mix, growing Go Grain, growing Manna millets. We launched a multigrain atta with 25% multigrains. We're probably the few people to actually put so much of multigrain in an atta, and it's doing extremely well. Because the more millets mean you lower the GI quotient of the product. So first priority, continue to grow the health portfolio of the organization. The second priority is, obviously, given all that is happening, grow e-commerce and explode e-commerce even further. And when I say that, it says that you have to go where the water is to drink, right? It is a fact that many consumers have stopped going to the store till they the immunity vaccine and all that is ready. I know people who are not stepping out of the house. Okay, so definitely, which it's meant that traffic has moved from the kirana store, from the supermarket, to the online ecosystems, the online e-commerce platforms, and websites of companies. Therefore, this is a big priority for us. How are you listed across e-commerce platforms? How can you leverage the platforms better? A lot of effort has gone in from April to June in improving what we had. See, you always, necessity is the mother of invention, right? When the market moves there, you have to be ready to embrace it. And I can broadly say it's the fastest growing channel and growing like its number of times is the growth that we've been having. Part of it is definitely traffic movement. Part of it is what we have done. Part of it is just adopting yourself to be ready to sell the same thing in online. So this is the second kind of priority. The third priority of the organization has always been renovation and innovation, and both with equal focus. We relaunched our instant badam mix, where we put so much of badam in it, and we put a fantastic tasting product, and we kind of grew 6-7 times of what we were selling earlier. Like I told you, we're very close to launching a few more products. We launched the multi-grain atta I talked to you about. We kind of huge priority we have given to innovation. I must say, in the first 3-4 months, even innovations took a little bit of a standstill, took us 3-4 steps back, because it was not easy. First of all, for R&D people to come, for them to source them from different parts of the world or different parts of the country. So it was a big challenge here. But having said that, the third priority has always been for 2020 innovation. You will see in the next 12 months a far more very highly differentiated and relevant but health and nutrition products coming out of the Manna stable. A last priority in this whole thing has been people. The biggest, in fact, I said it last, but because it's so important. When something like this to manage, and we have not asked people to go, we have not cut 1 day of salary. We've kind of took the call that over a 20-50-year-old organization span, what is 12 months? And if you don't have the wherewithal to manage these 12 months and take a hit, everybody should take a hit. Your shareholder, the board, the CEOs, everybody should take some hit or the other. But you can't let employees suffer over a 60-year-old organization or a 70-year-old potential lifespan of an organization you can't let 12 months affect it. So we've kind of taken care that we will not, change salaries or anything like that. And, by the grace of God, we've kind of managed and we kind of put a sustainable model to manage it. So very, very happy and proud of the team in Manna Foods for having come up to the challenge, because it is not easy, to say that. It's very nice to say, no, we will take care of all the employees and we will not cut anybody's salary. It doesn't come free, right? It means that you have to do something to manage that. And I'm happy that the leaders and everybody in the organization took up that challenge without us telling in as many terms. And therefore, whether it is coming to office, whether it is getting a packaging done faster, whether it is going to the vendor and requesting him, we will get you an entry pass to open. Please open the factory. Sometimes, going out of their way to solve an employee's problem. This has also made the organization stronger and closer here, because we've all kind of, I won't say come out of it completely, but we have like 80-90% come out of it without too much of hit here. So going back, I'd say the big priority of focusing on human beings and the employees and taking a human approach to it has and will keep us in good stead for the next 10 years.
That's wonderful to hear. I think, and I'm hearing this from so many people as taking a human approach to the crisis that we have. I think it's very important. And your other strategies also, sound really, really interesting. So taking over from there, I wanted to understand, for a legacy brand like Manna Foods, what does your typical media mix look like? And has 2020 wrought any changes there? Have you done something different? So let's start with what your typical mix looks like.
Sure. So see, we've always relied on television a lot and digital. Yes, the ratio has gone a little more to digital in the times, like for the reasons I already told you about. But as a mix, by and large, it's been television and digital as the main two streams of spends in the media mix. Also, being such a key channel for us, and I told you, like our e-commerce growth has been like phenomenal and huge. I must also mention here that the e-commerce platforms like Amazon, Flipkart, and BigBasket have been so supportive of these so-called smaller companies. We're not a 1 billion, 2 billion giant MNC or anything like that, right? But the amount of support and the infrastructure that people like Amazon, Flipkart, and BigBasket, even Swiggy and Zomato and all of them have provided in this time speaks of their preparedness and their willingness to grow everybody, right? So in terms of media mix, it's by and large been South. It's by and large been television and digital, with very see, radio listenership came down, right? A large percentage also happens when you're traveling to work, so it didn't make too much of sense to put money on that from a reach point of view. Print was the same thing, in my society as well. Newspapers stopped coming. You have to go outside and pick it up. Imagine for a person who does, many people who don't want to come out of their house, they don't want to come out to pick up the newspaper, right? They'll rather read it on their app. So I must, while I was feeling a little bad for these industries, because they also have marketers and businesses, right? But they kind of tied it through that as well. Today, print is really coming back, and I'm sure in like 4 or 5 months' time, radio will be like back to full listenership. But because of what was happening, our media mix is relied on TV and digital. And just to focus back on digital, like I told you, there's so many things to do on digital, right? Whether it is within the e-commerce platforms, whether it is on social media like Insta, Facebook, and Twitter, whether it is within apps, whether it is programmatic, whether it is using third parties like Daily Hunt or anything else. So you have a plethora of options in digital, and our media mix looks at all of them. But being a smaller player relatively, we may not be present on all of them at the same time. We do horses for courses. So the beauty about digital is the ability to isolate geographies, which TV doesn't give you. So wherever we have certain products doing very well in certain geographies, or certain product has a humongous potential to grow in a certain geography, we spend a lot on digital and extensively target and see. Of course, out of 3 attempts, 1 would be successful and 2 you will end up learning and not giving that kind of ROI. It's a very big thing. Digital spends on the key is also attribution as well as ROI. Sometimes you could attribute, but the cost is very high. Correct. And sometimes put money down the drain, right? Media strategy be. But having said that, long of short, we look at all the options, and thanks to my earlier stints in the superb companies that I've worked for, there's a huge learning. And we used to sit in the Google office, we used to sit in the Facebook office, and look at all kinds of options. We used to beta test things in previous organizations. So I've brought a little bit of that learning into a company like Southern Health Foods and put it on the Manna brand. So we kind of will continue to grow the e-commerce channel big way. We will continue to grow social media, and we'll talk a little bit more about content, I'm assuming, but we will also spend a lot of effort in developing content. We are still taking baby steps in some of them. In some of them, we are reasonably established, given the size of our company.
Nice. So we will come to content, but taking on from the e-commerce piece, e-commerce is working very well for you and you're working with these multiple partners. But say your own channel, your mannafoods.com, how big is that? How big of a contributor is that to your e-commerce or, to the entire e-commerce piece?
Good question. Tough question, because the whole world wants you to sell from your e-commerce platform, right? You have a website, you have a product, why don't you sell it? The way I look at it is, see, any job has a certain amount of expertise, right? The e-commerce platform's job is to give you a platform to buy and sell. So at any point of time, the capabilities they will build. Like there was a previous organization of mine where it was a food company, and their headquarters in international headquarters, 80% of the people were working on coding. Shocking for a food company, right? So it is like that while the intention is that you have to grow your website and all that, in smaller organizations, you have to take calls. We have taken a strategic call that because of the support we have got from the ecosystem of Amazon, Flipkart, BigBasket, Netmeds, and all of them are so supportive of us, and they are working overtime to have the best UI, the best UX. So we are okay using those platforms to sell. Where we will use our website is we will use it for information, downloading, information dissemination. We will use it for engagement. We may tomorrow use it for loyalty as well. But we would predominantly not use it currently for e-commerce, simply because the size of your brand, the frequency of purchase of your brand. If I'm going to buy something every day, like a soap or anything else, if I'm going to buy something like a biscuit, or if I'm going to buy something every day, it makes a lot of sense for the number of transactions that you would get to not just sustain your own website, but to build it as best in class. Today, a consumer has a choice and he's always comparing. So if I go to one app and I'm in and out in 2 steps in 30 seconds, if I'm going to come to your app and take 6 steps and be in and out in 2 minutes, why would I want to buy it from your side? And really, would companies like us focus on UI UX, or rather on the food and the nutrition and the marketing of it? So currently, given the scale, what we will use the website is for, we would use it for a lot of information dissemination. People want to know, and I told you, right? People want to know different millets. What are the benefits? People want to know why is natural nutrition so important for people till 6 years old? Why they should not, ideally, we recommend not to give products which are, with artificial flavors and colors and all to young kids. After they are 6 and 7, they eat pizzas and burgers and biscuits and everything else, right? So you don't control what they eat, which is okay. But till the time the mother is kind of very conscious about what she's giving, why is natural nutrition so important? What is different kinds of sugars in a pack? Now, I'm not saying we have all of that in the website. I'm giving you the thought of what we want to do with the website. We want to inform and to some extent make the consumer conscious of whatever they buy in the country. Okay, saying that, okay, so this is what added sugar means. This is what sugar means. This is what malt means. Okay, even in our advertising, we are saying malt, extract, and sugar. You have to understand to say, what it means. So we will do a lot of information on health and nutrition on the website. We will also use it to engage. Somebody comes, we want to give lead magnets. We want to give them recipes. A lot of people say we buy millets, we use them as rice. Can I make an upma? Can I make a poha? While we have ready to cook as well, they could easily make it at home as well, right? It's important to tell them how to do that, right? Now you could want it by tomorrow. What do you do with it? So we would like to make how to make the easiest millet kodo millet upma at home. How do you make a foxtail pulao at home? We would love to do it your own videos and all that. See, given the nature of the organization and what COVID and all that, it has taken a little bit of a backseat. We are working heavily on making this website absolutely best in class, not for e-commerce currently, more for information dissemination and hugely engaging. You just have to give our email ID. We would tell you what are the 10 things that you should do with kids from a recommendation point of view. We would tomorrow like to have experts who will say, I'll tell you what it is. And we'll like link with experts and ask them to come to our, use our website more for publishing good content. It could be my competition who says, I have a better, video on what is nutrition, which is not branded, but I'll put my company name. I'm okay of putting another company's educative video, which is not their brand, but education to consumer on my website. What is wrong? If the purpose is to up the nutrition awareness and consciousness of the Indian consumer, we shouldn't be very selfish about it. Even if it is competition, I'm stretching it. Of course, I'll need a lot of people to say okay to it, but at a thought level, I'm okay. And second, loyalty. Tomorrow, I could send free samples of what I launch to consumers who are very loyal to me. Okay, I could send them booklets. I could send them recipe booklets. I could send them baby. And I must tell you, we have, I don't know whether I'm allowed to talk about it. We have infant products. We are one of the few people in the country who can actually do infant products. And we do infant products with sprouted ragi and sprouted gram. Okay, we are one of the, probably one of its kind infant products as well. And therefore, while there is no way I can advertise it in any way, or I shouldn't, I could put some content on the website for them to see. For loyal people, I could give more information, people who buy frequently from us. So essentially, information dissemination, engagement, and loyalty is what we would like to use our website. Not taking away the fact that if somebody wants to buy from the website, I should give them the option. Therefore, a lot of effort will have to go into making the website and the mobile app of mannafoods.in seamless. But we're kind of wanting to do that with the focus not so much to sell from the website. See, if you have to buy my product from my website, you have to come only, but all of that is listed in all the e-commerce platform. So we see no big value apart from some extra margin in somebody buying only from me. I'd rather let the experts handle UI and UX and be present in their platforms and grow. Use my platform for content, information sharing, education, and loyalty.
Interesting. I see very, very strong angles and pillars for D2C, which is the buzzword right now. All companies going direct to consumers and interacting and creating loyalty, creating content that is actually useful, not an advertisement. So when was this that, your previous brand is like pure D2C brand, like you're saying 80% of you guys working on technology. So when was it that you took this decision for Manna Foods to actually go D2C? What have been the pillars of this D2C journey? Some of them you've already told me. It's been content, it's been loyalty, it's been engagement. When was this decision taken, and what was the journey like?
Sure. I'll just take one point just before I come to that question, which is important to set the context. See, I personally believed on what I call in most companies I've worked with, at least for the last 6-7 years, on what I call the 4C model, right? Any business, you have to look at it from a consumer point of view, from a capability point of view, to give what the consumer would want across all functions, from cost, because you have to give, you have to sustainably being able to give it to the consumer means you'll have to be very cost efficient. And the last is, in some way, it is about cash. Businesses can't sustain on, without money. So this preamble is true for any business. So one thing we apply even to Southern Health Foods is the same thing. We apply the 4C approach. However, one of the things I noticed, given my bias to having handled a lot of digital businesses before that, is it was just waiting to be had. People wanted, for example, my distribution would not be as strong in rest of the country. So somebody sitting in Mhow or Jaipur or Agartala would want, was in Chennai before, gave Manna Health Mix to their first kid. They want to give Manna Health Mix to their second kid, who's now like 4 years old or 5 years old. But they're sitting in Agartala or they're sitting in Lucknow, where my distribution may not be that strong. I'm very big in South, but I'm not big everywhere else, right? Now, what would this consumer do? Normally, they would try to find out, is there a South Indian outlet around? They'll have to figure out, right? So I realized today it's about understanding where your consumer is and giving him where he is, right? So it was very, very what do you call, seamless to say, why am I not big in the digital space? So we were almost non-existent, a couple of years back, to almost 10% of the business is being contributed from e-com today. Okay, and we think it will go to 20% in the next 6 months. That's how we are exploring e-commerce. The logic has always been that when you're D2C, it's not easy because it brings with it two important things. One is service level, because you're directly talking to the consumer. It's not one retailer or somebody else in between. You are the owner of the brand or the custodian of the brand and the product, and you're directly talking to the person who's actually receiving it. Second is the response levels, right? And small organizations have a challenge. They can't put a 5 crore e-listening center with 50 people manning it. That's what a big company would do, right? I'll put 50 people manning every problem every consumer has and respond immediately. You can't afford it, but the consumer still wants it, right? So D2C brings with itself both the challenges. How beautifully can you service it? How quickly can you respond to customers, either problems or inquiries? And therefore, I must say the previous organization was very helpful in the kind of insights I got here. Even the earlier one before that, all those insights have really helped us, not just me. The entire ecosystem has been, debating, always looking at the consumer as the endpoint. Consumer is going to be in that space. He would want it, and I'd like to give. Not because, oh, let me sell in e-commerce and make 5% more money. If that was the starting point, we would have found it difficult. We said the consumer is wanting a product in the place where he is. Flipkart, Amazon, BigBasket, wherever they are on the digital platform, or they don't even know where to buy. And therefore they end up going and Googling. So we said, this is what is the customer that we should not lose, because they want us. They're your loyal consumers. They're searching for you organically. Why are you not servicing them? And why are you not servicing them well? So this started off the journey from where we were, to be honest with you, it may sound funny, but we are like 80 times what we were a couple of years back, but we were almost nothing, right? So D2C, every business today has to see for the reasons I told you. If not for sale, look at it for engagement, look at it for information, look at it for affinity for the brand. Nobody today can say, I am not D2C. You don't have an option. Okay, if you want a brand, for a commodity, it is different. I sell for a margin and I forget about it. No brand today can be off D2C. FMCG brands have to be really, really D2C. And companies like us, which pride in giving very differentiated products in health, immunity, nutrition, have a lot to say to the consumer. Apart from just saying, oh my God, this is the brand, please buy it. We have to say so much more, right? And we can't afford to say all that in TV. I can't have 2-minute advertisement on TV, right? Therefore, the digital medium is a beautiful way for me to tell the consumer what is actual fact. Forget creating perception and reality and all that. Even to say the fact, it's a beautiful medium. So that's how the D2C journey started. I must say, we're still taking baby steps. We're still learning this. It's an ocean. And as we speak, more avenues are being opened up. So this is a space where you have to be on your toes. You can't sit for a second. But our journey has begun. It's done well. And we have huge hopes on the business here.
Absolutely. So like I was telling you earlier, suddenly we're seeing more and more of Manna Foods across the country. So you've always been strong in South India. All vacations I've seen Manna Foods in all the supermarkets. But of late, I've started seeing Manna Foods in other metros as well, Delhi, Mumbai. North. Like I said, it's no longer what brand is this? I haven't heard of them. People know what Manna Foods is. So, what are the plans for expansion in North India and other parts of India? Considering, like we said, 2020 people are suddenly interested in eating millets or at least figuring out what this part of the nutrition story is.
Sure. From a product point of view, we will increase the product portfolio and make it available in wherever we have distribution with. We are present in many places in North, West, and East India as well in a very limited way. Where we are present, we will grow through product portfolio. The challenge for small organizations are capital, right? And investment potential. Today, we invest in the South. And if you don't invest in branding and marketing and TV advertising, creating FMCG brands only digitally is hugely challenging. And you need to also back it up with that kind of distribution in that location. We have so much of revenue to grow in the South itself, right? So we will continue to invest and grow in the South. In North, West, and East, we will continue to invest digitally. So you will find us in Instagram. You will find cooking videos of millets. We want to tell people that millets have been there in all states in the country. Can you imagine there is a name for a millet in their own terminology? Okay, it could be nachni in Maharashtra, obviously, ragi in Karnataka. Every state has their own local, what do you call local nomenclature for millets, but they don't know what is millets. Now, it's a beautiful way for me in the North, West, and East to warm people out to millets and to tell them they're wonder grains. We talk so much about quinoa, which is like Mexico, America, it's come from there. We have some amazing products in India, and millets being one of them, right? Why? And millets are not one. There's so many millets in the country. There's some 12, 13 different millets in the country. We need to kind of use the digital medium. We will expand in geography as well. But we will expand in those geographies where we can reach the consumers to create awareness of the category as well as the brand. In many cases, I'm the brand. I'm the category itself. So we will, to answer to your question, product-wise, we will expand wherever we are present across North, West, and East. Geography-wise, we will expand where we can support with information on brand building. Because I'm not a commodity that there is this dal and there is this manna dal. No. Every product of mine, mostly 99% of them will have a specific differentiation. How do I tell that to you? I can't just place it in a shop and send you 4 pages and say, read the signs and buy the product. They can't, right? So I have to use digital medium. The jury is out. Can you build complete brands by only advertising a very limited amount on digital medium? That's a challenge we have. We don't have huge monies to invest and grow South and put that kind of monies in North, West, and East. So I'll put monies, but lesser. Now, when we put lesser monies, which geography will respond? Which shows higher traffic, higher conversion, higher affinity, higher search for Manna brand? We have e-listening and all of that today, right? So suffice to say, we will grow both product as well as geography in North, West, and East. Hopefully in the couple of years time or 2 to 3 years time, we will really be a very big, but very big in mind space brand of a company which believes in health, immunity, and nutrition through millets and multigrain.
So great. So you spoke about mind space, and 2020 has been a year where whoever I'm speaking to, all the content experts that I'm speaking to are saying, you need to have your storytelling in place. Your empathy quotient should be very high, and your information delivery should be very apt. And social media has kind of exploded, like you said, Instagram, and giving out information, giving out recipes, what to do with your kid who's 5 years old. It's the most important question every mother has, and myself included. So, what has been your social media, content production on the other hand, 2020, while everyone wants to consume content, producing this content is a real challenge. So I've seen a lot of regional content on your social media channels. What have been some of the challenges for content production at scale, especially when it comes to digital? You can have personalization and then ROI on top of that, and then so many layers and so many things you can do. How are you kind of managing?
See, again, it goes back to what you believe in, right? Content in the digital platform, personally, and to some extent the team, what we believe in is, you can't get too selfish about content. Like this is about my product and my benefit and my reason to believe and my tagline and my brand. Doesn't work in the social media. So first part is, can you be a little selfless as well in content creation? Okay, which means either you give something back to the consumer by way of that content, apart from wanting to only, within quotes, sell to him. The second thing that we look at is the content really relevant to the consumer? The third thing is it easily absorbable? Could be short form, long form, understandable, which brings into account regional language. Many people may or may not, understand it. So, in some way, genuine. How genuine is what you're saying? Not being selfish, being genuine, being relevant, and also giving it in a way which is easily absorbable are the so-called thumb rules of content development if you're serious about it. You shouldn't view it as one more poster just put on social media. Okay, this is the antithesis of what I told you. Like marketing is the same, the medium has changed from digital to from TV and other things. It's also moved to digital. But what the weightage of what people see and absorb is a little different in digital media. Credibility is a very, 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 very huge thing with content. Okay, and if you do the things I told you, you have a chance of being more credible, and even then you have a chance to being more credible. I open my app, there are 15 ads, so there's a credibility rating for all those ads. The one which are highly credible and relevant is what I click and see. So coming back, it's been a challenge for us. And to be honest with you, we're taking baby steps, because this would mean a huge investment, a little bit of investment, a little bit of dabbling with different things, having teams which can create that kind of content. So in spite of the fact that we used to do that heavily in the earlier companies, we kind of know what to do, but we have not gone berserk as well. What you're seeing probably is like 20% of what we want to do, or 15% of what we want to do. Yes, we will look at regional language posts. There is a limit on today's social media on how much text you can give and how much pictorially you can represent and all that. That leads itself to a huge challenge. Baba, I have so much to say. No, you can't say so many things. Brevity is the soul of it. Give it in like few words. And then give a click where they can download an entire research paper and all that. Third is, this whole thing about content is also short form, long. How do you make it entertaining for them? People like to, they're already tough here, COVID and office pressures and all of that, right? They're looking at content as a way also of entertainment and engagement. So one, can you make it in a way which is not very hard and loose? Can you, and make them enjoyable as well? This is how we're looking at it. Yes, we're talking to different content creators, both serious and otherwise. Expensive. It's a little expensive business. You probably, the infrastructure today is also developing in India. I remember earlier there were 3 companies, and once in an earlier paint company, I was trying to get content for some 3 lakhs, and the thought came to 3 crores. Can you imagine? That's how the big content creators look at it. If you can afford it, there's a largeness to it, you should do. But for companies like our size, you need also people who can develop quick content very fast, to understand the thought behind it. We are a very serious brand, right? We can't be like cool and very youth type as well, right? We are very serious and certain value systems and all that in what we create. So getting an infrastructure which will create that content, it is growing, mushrooming. I get messages and calls that of so many content providers today. One, infrastructure development. 2, can you invest in it? 3, how serious are you on it? So we are very serious. There is a limitation on how much we can invest in content, and because it builds the brand more than sale and anything else. It makes your brand much stronger. So you should do it, but you can't do it while also doing TV, while also doing programmatic, while also doing so many things. You need to have a strategy which is about investment and timeline with content. We are moving in that direction, taking baby steps now. If you have noticed some of our content, I'm very happy because like what I told you, we're getting started. We will go by all the four things that I told you, that we will not be selfish. We will be relevant to the consumer. We will give it in the format they will absorb. We will give it in a language that they will absorb. We will be very genuine, and we will try different things because we have so many products and so many brands that, there is so much to do in content. And I feel overall in India, people should focus far more. If you look at the Content Marketing Institute, and I'm connected to a lot of them on social media, and the work they've done in some of the international markets are path breaking. It's just waiting for somebody to just copy and say, and copy with pride and say, we want to do similar stuff in India. The ecosystem will grow in the next couple of years to hugely content. It started off in 2015, 14, 15, 16. But I feel in this drive to say what is attribution, what is ROI, they're forgetting the fact that building TOMA and building the brand affinity, which doesn't have a direct indicator to today's results, is as key for the long-term sustenance of brands. I see this changing very, very rapidly in the next couple of years. Yes, we will be very, very big on content.
Next question is about new age brands which are entering this millet space, and they're very creative with their millet usage. So you have pancakes and muffins and cupcakes and pasta and muesli and so many fancy items coming in, and they're very high on crowdsourced content. So I was speaking to some of them and they said, we don't advertise, people send us content, we just use it on our social handles. A very, very nice form of marketing. Now, as a legacy brand, do you feel challenged by these kind of brands, or is it good to have more people to promote the millet bandwagon?
Good, yeah, very interesting point. And see, like I started by saying, millets are wonder grains. People talk about quinoa, which has come from outside. Millets are Indian wonder grains. I know for a fact, I have heard from people that even Niti Aayog is saying, what is the beauty about millets is that millets don't even need water. And in a country like India with irrigation and all the challenges, it is about consumers knowing that they can replace everything they do with, rice or wheat. They could also do it with millets, and millets are complex carbohydrates with a lower GI quotient. So I feel that the more companies that come in at this stage, they will end up growing the awareness and therefore the category of not just millets, but millet value-added foods as well. So can you hear me? I just lost you for a second.
Go on.
Yo, superb. Okay.
No, I'm switching off my video.
No issues. So the more companies come in, and I agree with you that a lot of these startups and new entrepreneurs are coming up with millet value added. And rather than looking them as competition, we should say all of us should make India healthier, and only a small percentage of the population today have so-called woken up and has started embracing millets. So more power to everybody who says, I want to do millet value added is our stated position on this. Having said that, it is about what you can do with it as well. We have, somebody asked me, we have an advertising in South which says, if you want your husbands to stay fit, you have to shift to millets at least 2 times in the week. Instead of rice, make the same sambar rice, make the same bisibela, make the same tamarind rice with millets instead of rice. That's our advertising. People ask me, why are you growing the millets category? But that's what we want to do. The second point you said is even more important. Because the awareness levels are low, because people keep writing to me, how do I cook this and how do I cook that? It is important to have a lot of crowdsourced videos for 2 reasons. One, there is a belief that somebody next door like me is actually using them. Therefore, I believe that it is possible. And the credibility of these crowdsourced videos are very high. So I see, again, many companies, including us, will do much more of this. crowdsource more for credibility and proper information on how to cook, how to make, because every millet has a different soaking time, has a different cooking time. Some millets go very well with certain food products. Something will go well with a pulao, something will go right with curd rice, although I can't call it rice. Something will go very well with upma. How do you know it? Even if you know it, it's like reading on the book. How do you even know the color of the millet? Okay, so these videos which people say it's so easy to do and all will first break the mind that millets are good, but I don't know what to do with it, or it's so tough. I sincerely hope and wish and pray that people understand the goodness of this grain and adopt it large scale, whichever company they buy, because it would make our country more healthy and more nutritious. And that's how brands become big, because I have a cause which is good for the community. And in turn, I also sell and I also make money. I also have to manage shareholders. But the overarching intent is to make India eat more healthy and drink more healthy. We have, when we launched the first multigrain drink in the country, or one of the first people to have launched a multigrain drink in the country, it was very difficult. In the world, there are not enough multigrain drinks because grains are made to eat. How do you make them to drink? It's not easy. So you need a lot of R&D to get it to that level, right? So you still don't have millet shakes in the market yet. Okay, millet biscuits. You can go on, about millet food. Potential to expand in the country, and therefore more people come in, merrier. In fact, I would be happy if big companies also realize and start coming into it, because then the conversion would happen that much faster.
No, absolutely. I think the opportunity for growth for this product is huge, and we've only kind of looked at the surface of it as of now.
And I have a worry. I'm my biggest worry is, am I investing enough? Can I do much more in R&D? Is a challenge I face, because there's no question on millets and multigrains being good. How can you adapt it to various food and drink categories is a challenge.
Correct. So coming to a personal question now, Murugan, I think it's fantastic the kind of vision that Mana Foods has. I think bringing that kind of nutrition to a country like India, where it is it's not just good for the person eating it, but it's good for the ecosystem as a whole, for the farming community, for the kind of soil that we have, and for the person eating it, of course, and for our next generations. I think it's a wonderful vision that you've shared with us. Thank you so much for that. Now, coming to a personal question, and you've been a growth leader, and I've seen you as a CMO, working as a CMO. I've seen you as a COO, and now I'm talking to you as a CEO. Now, this is a growth trajectory that a lot of people are aspiring to, especially our CMOs. A lot of CMOs with the AgTech community. This is exactly the trajectory, because they are now not just they're not just marketers, they are growth leaders. They are responsible for a P&L. They have a target on so many units sold, for that matter, right? So what is your advice to marketers for 2021? How can they actually move in this direction?
See, the first thing to tell is marketing. And people always ask me the difference between sales and marketing. Very from the time when I did my management, people have been asking this question. My answer has always been, one is about just meeting the ends meet and making products or service available in the correct format. One is about creating needs, creating wants, and satisfying needs. So the first advice to marketers is, believe in consumer insight. You have lots and lots of data and observations. They mean nothing if it is not converted into a consumer insights. The world runs on insights. Okay, so if they are very strong in what is the base of their marketing, which is consumer insights, I can tell you they have both options. They can grow within marketing, they can grow outside. Because what I want them to understand is, if the consumer insight is clear, every function in any business of service or product goes back to the consumer. What is the price you want to keep? Therefore, what should be the cost? What is the pack the person wants? What is the type of car the person wants? And therefore, what is the capex that you would put? What is the gross margin you would make which means how much capex can you put to get an ROCE or an ROI of so many, or a payback of so many years. What consistently consumer will demand from this product, so that what should be your quality manual. If you are a really good marketer who understands consumer need and want, and realize that you are number one person who's designing the response to this consumer need and want, if you train yourself doing this in what role you're doing, the shift to a business is actually seamless, because you would have more time at your disposal. Here I look at what is it that is an universal truth here, which has a problem which my product or service can solve. So mining, I used to have a lot of debate with an earlier CEO of mine saying, insights don't come from plants. All of us have the same data, but it's taking me more time. And to be honest with you, I was taking a little more time than what was given to me, because the insight was not ready. So if they do their current job to the best of their abilities, the transition to business is actually seamless if they view it like this. Okay, that's one advice I'd like to give them, to understand in depth. I call it the single click, the double click, the triple click. It could be a UNA. So what is need scope? What is usage and behavior? What is need scope? And no, what is Carl Jung's theory? So they don't go at the third level of anything they do sometimes, because they're so busy with churning out presentations and meeting the innovation demand and running around to markets and research. They have to be clear on in what they do. First click, all of them would know. They won't time sometimes spending on the second click, and they have to do the third click. It could be on market research, it could be on household panel data, it could be on packaging color and color research on the packaging, it could be digital e-listening, it could be anything in the marketing framework. It could be media and research and models. I remember we had a model which said, when you advertise on a match, what happens? When you advertise without a match, what happens? When you advertise on a Sunday, what happens? When you advertise. So, building those models is not the second click, it's the third click, right? So the advice would be absolutely thorough in what you're doing. The shift, we are privileged to be in marketing for so long, that the shift to business starts with, again, consumers. So it would be quite easy. The only change as you get ready to move to a leadership role, or to a CEO or a COO role, is one have to start understanding to manage other leaders. Like as a marketing, you're supposed to lead with consumers. Here you have people who lead in quality, who lead in manufacturing, who lead in R&D, who lead in finance and ledgers and capex. And so you'll need to get this quality of, there are enough people who are super competent in that function. You may as well be that competent, but you can't forget they're as competent. And therefore, how do you manage a set of leaders is something they have to get or groom themselves into. The second thing, which is a little more easy, is human. Be as human as possible when you move to this role. It is about people as you grow in the hierarchy. The last, most important, don't do it because that's the career path all my mentors have taken. I'm head of marketing now. What else do I do? No, I'll take a COO, I'll take a CEO role. That's the only path. Nothing like that. You should have fun in what you're doing. What you do should make you happy. Is far more important than okay, what if I lose one more year and I don't become the CEO, what will happen? You spend up one more year in making thorough in consumer and what you're doing, so that when you get that role, you'll be far more efficient than another person. So don't do it for other people. Don't do it on a race or what your other batchmates are doing. Do it because you think you would love doing it and you would have fun doing it, is the advice I want to give to them.
Fantastic. I'd say golden words. And really important to focus on when competition and when peer pressure, everything is literally cutthroat. So I think very important to keep in mind that after 15-20 years, is this what you really want to do, or were you caught in the wrong profession? Very important question to ask. So fun question for you on the same note, Murugan. When you started your career in Britannia in 2004 and multiple companies after that, eventful career is what I'd call it. What would your advice be to your 2004 self, professional or personal?
You mean if I had to go back to 2004, what would I say?
What would you tell yourself?
I wouldn't change anything, but I'll just tell one thing to me is probably I could have had a little more fun. And I learned it, working with a great, fun-loving CEO, that a lot of serious and amazing work can be done with having fun as well. I probably thought I was a little too serious with career and life in that space of my time. From 99, I joined Britannia. I think till 2011 or 2010, I was very, very, very serious about my career and in all of that. On hindsight, it wouldn't have diminished anything. So the career I've had, I wouldn't change it for anything. So first, that's my first answer to you. No change. I'm extremely happy where I am. If at all I have to, you force me to say, nahi, kuch to hoga, something should change, I would probably have not taken life so seriously. I work so seriously, is the only advice and I would like to give that as an advice as well. It's important, yeah, this is just one part of what we do, and whatever is the stake, okay, you can't not have fun while doing work.
No, true that. I agree with you. 2004, I also started my career at a similar time, 5 and 6. It was a place where we'd just gotten out of the recession. All of us were super scared and extremely thankful for having a job. So all of us were very serious. I agree with that. We could have had a lot more fun.
Yeah, but in short, I wouldn't change anything. Yeah, the kind of friends, the kind of bosses I've learned from, the mentors I've had, the geographies of India that my companies took me to, the kind of categories that I've had to understand consumers about. It's made me rich as a person as well. I wouldn't like to change it for anything here. So the short answer, nothing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Murugan. It's been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for speaking with AdTech.